So look, I have little doubt that cloud gaming will eventually become a big part of video games' future. I think that we're headed in that direction. I don't think cloud gaming will overtake physical and digital medium, but I do think that it's going to coexist with our traditional form of gaming. But I do not think Stadia is going to lead the charge when it comes to cloud gaming because they're so misguided on their business model and because at launch they failed to kick off strong, they failed to gain momentum. There's just so many features missing. The technology is clearly not there yet. The internet infrastructure is just not good enough for Stadia to be 100% viable as a reliable gaming service. And the games just aren't there. And sure, that may come over time, but there's competitors out there, other sharks in the water, wanting a piece of the pie, like Microsoft's Project xCloud, and that looks more promising. Just everything about the way Stadia has launched has felt undercooked, underbaked, and alongside the various mishaps when it comes to Stadia's launch, alongside the missing features and games, we are seeing situations in which it makes even less sense to go with Stadia over other existing platforms. So let's take a look at the story. This information comes from various news outlets. This is an article from Polygon, and the headline of this article reads, "The new Darksiders costs an extra $10 on Google Stadia." So many of you will probably know Darksiders, and Genesis is a new entry in the series that's come out for PC and Stadia, and it's coming out on consoles down the line. But for now, as of the publishing of this video, PC and Stadia is where you'll find this game. And for some bizarre reason, as it reads right here, on Stadia, Genesis costs $39.99 or $40. But if you pre-ordered the game on Steam, you only had to pay $25.50. So if you pre-ordered on Steam, that's $15 less for the game versus if you were to buy the game on Stadia. Now, if you didn't pre-order and you go now to Steam or even GOG or Humble, the game is still significantly cheaper at $29.99 or $30 instead of the $40. It's still $10 cheaper to get Genesis on other storefronts than it is on Stadia. As for why this is the case, well, Polygon did reach out to THQ about this, but they couldn't provide any information. The statement that a THQ spokesperson provided reads, "THQ doesn't comment on their price policy." Now, it should be noted that if you check out this game's listing on consoles like Switch and PS4 and Xbox One, you'll find that in those platforms, Genesis is also $40 like it is on Stadia, so there is that. But here's the thing. Right now, Stadia's main competition when it comes to where people should play Genesis is PC, because the game is only out on Stadia and PC. So for the game to cost $10 more on a platform that is yet unproven, on a platform that had a rough launch, on a platform that still has a lot of technical kinks to work out, that doesn't function at 100%, that doesn't have a lot of features, that doesn't deliver on a lot of promises, for them to charge more for what is essentially an inferior version of the game, a less reliable version of the game, is simply nuts to me that Google wouldn't do something about this. And then there's the fact that Stadia isn't really even a console. This is something that Polygon highlighted here in this article. This excerpt reads, "Some Stadia owners are chalking the $10 premium on precedent set by other releases in which console versions of certain games cost more than their PC counterparts. But that style of pricing model is outdated, especially for a platform that's definitely not a console." That is absolutely true, and in fact, a big part of Stadia's marketing campaign is them saying that no console is required. There is no console or hardware whatsoever, it's just you and the cloud. So to model itself after consoles is just wholly misguided, especially given that Stadia right now offers an inferior experience to getting a console and playing games there locally due to the fact that there are limitations like internet speed. If you don't have good enough internet speed, you're going to get choppy gameplay. There are plenty of cases in which people who do have good internet speed still can't run games smoothly because God knows why. And then there are internet data caps, and not to mention that currently Stadia cannot run at 4K on Chrome browsers. You need that Chromecast Ultra to run at 4K 60 FPS, and then on top of that, you need that subscription, which is $10 a month to get 4K 60 FPS. And then there's the fact that right now, the only way to play Stadia is by buying the $130 Founders Edition. So all across the board, the value just isn't there for Stadia. So we're dealing with a platform where games look worse, they run worse, and the prices for these games are higher. And it isn't just Darksiders Genesis. There are plenty of other games on Stadia that simply cost more on the cloud streaming platform versus other storefronts. They cost full price on Stadia, whereas on other platforms they are on sale. Their prices have been reduced. So this right here is an article from Ars Technica, and it points out how Just Dance 2020 goes for $50 on Stadia compared to $40 on modern consoles. And if you get the Wii version, if you still have that, that's $30. Grid is available for $27 as part of a Steam super sale, down from the standard $60 price on Stadia. So on Steam, we are looking at a price cut of over half, over 50%. And then if you buy Grid's Ultimate Edition, that's still $5 cheaper on Steam if you don't consider discounts. And then it's pointed out right here that the Platinum Edition of Farming Simulator 19 was sold for $40 on Stadia compared to $25 to $35 on Steam. But it is worth noting that Farming Simulator 19 is now a part of Stadia Pro's freebies catalog. But when the platform initially launched, this game was at a higher price than it was on Steam. And there are plenty of games out there still, like Grid and Just Dance, among others, and now Darksiders, that cost more on Stadia than on Steam or GOG and these other platforms that people currently prefer. Now, there is one game that is cheaper on Stadia than anywhere else, and that's Rise of the Tomb Raider 20-year celebration, which is sold on Stadia for $30, whereas on other platforms like Steam, you'll find that for $60. But Rise of the Tomb Raider is an old game, whereas Darksiders Genesis, it's brand new. You expect the same baseline price at launch across all platforms, but for reasons unexplained, Darksiders Genesis costs $40 on Stadia, $10 more than on Steam, GOG, and Humble currently. Stadia was already confusing enough as it is when it comes to the question of who is this platform for? Who is it meant to appeal? But now with these bizarre pricing discrepancies, there's all the less reason to get games on Stadia, to use Stadia as a main platform versus local hardware versus consoles and PC. The fact that Stadia forces you to buy games individually is already pretty questionable, but when those games you're buying end up costing more than on these other established platforms, it's just bizarre. Now, I guess Google's Phil Harrison did say something about this back in June, so a couple months ago. This was quoted by Ars Technica, and Phil Harrison's quote reads as follows: "I don't know why the Stadia version would be cheaper than competing versions. The value you get from the game on Stadia means you can play it on any screen in your life, TV, PC, laptop, tablet, phone. I think that is going to be valuable to players. In theory, the Stadia version of a game is going to be at the highest possible quality of innovation and sophistication on the game engine side." So Phil is saying right here that Stadia shouldn't offer cheaper games because the ability to switch between TV, PC, laptop, tablet, and phone will add enough value that it will justify purchasing individual games on Stadia. Except this feature is not fully shipped yet, despite Stadia being treated as a final product launch. In order to play on TV, you need to get the Chromecast Ultra device, which you can only get by paying $130. On PC and laptops, you have to boot up the Chrome browser to access Stadia. but it's an inferior experience because Chrome browser limits Stadia at 1080p. As for tablets and phones, well, that's limited by the fact that Stadia can only be accessed via Pixel devices currently, so this ability to switch between any device that has a screen on it, it's simply not ready yet. It's not fully implemented. Not to mention that with phones and tablets, it's supposed to be all about portability, but because public Wi-Fi doesn't tend to be enough to stream games on, and because you don't want to consume your data cap on your phone, using tablets and phones as a portable device for Stadia gameplay is currently an untenable proposition. You're probably just not going to get reliable internet that will allow for a smooth gameplay experience, and you're probably going to cap out your data plan right quick if you don't have unlimited data. And then another reason that Phil Harrison provides for why it's worth paying full price for games on Stadia is the fact that games on Stadia will be the highest quality when it comes to sophistication and innovation on the game engine side of things. The whole point of Stadia is that Google takes care of the hardware by putting up these powerful servers that can run games at max settings, and then all we have to worry about is streaming that. But we have learned after Stadia's launch that games aren't running on maximum graphical fidelity. So, for example, right here, Ars Technica details how, according to Digital Foundry, Red Dead Redemption 2 runs at 1440p rather than native 4K like it does on Xbox One X. And then when it comes to Destiny 2, well, for some reason, it runs on medium graphical settings on Stadia servers, and the game renders at native 1080p that then upscales to 4K. I've played Destiny 2 on Stadia, and it looks like ass compared to what you would see if you were to play the game on PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox One X, or even better on a powerful PC. So we know for a fact that games on Stadia do not actually look better than on, say, Xbox One X, which is less powerful than the Stadia servers, and Stadia games certainly don't look as good or run as well as they do on a powerful PC. That's one of the major complaints of Stadia. A big marketing push for the platform is 4K 60 frames per second. In fact, people are paying money. They're paying monthly, $10 a month for that 4K 60 frames per second. And yet now we're learning that a lot of the marquee games on Stadia right now do not run at 4K 60 frames per second. And if you use Chrome, all games run at maximum 1080p. That's a promise shattered right there, and so that cannot be used as justification for selling Stadia games at full price when they're on sale elsewhere. He says right here, highest possible quality of innovation and sophistication. This was back in June. Fast forward to November, December 2019, and we know for a fact that Phil's statement about the quality, the visual fidelity of Stadia games, what he said right here, is completely false. I should also mention that if you get Darksiders Genesis on PC instead of Stadia, especially if you get it on GOG DRM free, then you'll have a version of the game that does not require constant internet connection. Whereas with Stadia, if you lose internet connection, you lose access to the game completely. That's another disadvantage that makes buying games on Stadia less of a smart purchase, less of a good value proposition. So yeah, this is sort of where we're at, as if there weren't enough reasons to get Darksiders Genesis on PC rather than on Stadia. Now we're learning that it's actually cheaper to get it on PC, so now there's every reason to get this game on PC. So that's my take on this whole situation. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Darksiders costing $10 more on Stadia compared to the only other platform where it's currently being sold, PC, via Steam, GOG, and Humble. Drop a comment below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out!